Welcome back, my curious souls. Today's video is for all my fellow humans out there who know within their hearts that there are fairies, gnomes, nymphs, whatever you want to call them, all a part of the Fae world, and how Fae lore may be a little bit closer to Appalachian lore than you may think. There is this common misconception that Fae only exist in Ireland and Scotland most times, and this couldn't be further from the truth. We have fairy lore that extends across the globe. That could be Ireland or Scotland with their fairy lore, the Huldufolk and Iceland, or even the Tommyknockers in coal mining caves of Appalachia. I would say my connection with the Fae started very early in life, when I was a small kid. It wasn't enough for me that they were only depicted in fairy tales or Disney movies, and I just had this knowing or acceptance that they had to be out there. So I would spend time in my backyard with my books and sitting on my blanket and attempt to talk or communicate with them. And if only I'd known then how much that would benefit me or help me in what I do now. And I would say that it probably stemmed from just not willing to accept that ordinary or just everyday reality was all that there was. It wasn't enough for me. Many years ago, I had this amazing opportunity to go to Ireland to research traditional Irish music. And my research paper was actually on the connection between bluegrass music and Appalachian music. I titled the paper From the Greengrass to the Bluegrass, as there are heavy influences on where our mountain folk and bluegrass music actually stemmed from Ireland. Now, with that being said, I got to experience a lot of the magic of Ireland, and I will say that it is one of the most magical places that I've ever been, and I was so happy for that opportunity to experience those things. But then later in life, I was able to see a little more of other connections beyond just music. There are two notable experiences that I have connected between Appalachia and Fae, and the first being that of the Tommyknocker, which is a leprechaun type creature that is described in coal mines. And some would say that they were either good or bad, that they were tricksters, they would move tools and things that were needed, and then others would say that they would actually knock on the cave walls to notify others of potential cave-ins. So much so that some coal miners would actually throw the last of their lunch down into the mines in order to give like an offering to the Tommyknockers. Now, in addition to this, there is an amazing tale and story that comes from West Virginia. And this wasn't really long ago, I mean, it's been within the 2000s, that there was a person who went up to check their still. If you're wondering what a still is, he was making moonshine. Appalachian moonshine kind of goes hand in hand with history. And you do this in very remote locations for obvious reasons. He also made a note to say that he does not drink from the still. At least that communication to me says that he was coherent and of sound mind to be able to tell this story and what he saw. He leans up against a tree and decides to take a nap. And he wakes up from it a bit and he sees a masculine presence that is wearing a flannel type t-shirt, and he is beckoned to follow. So he does. Good job. So he follows this person out into the woods and they come up on a cabin. This is really odd. This person knows these hills and mountains and knows that there is no one that lives up here. There is not a cabin. But he continues to go in. Now, as he gets closer, he can hear music pouring out of it. Beautiful music. And it sounds like a festive celebration is going on. So he enters the cabin and there is food and drink and merriment. And he also talks about some of the most beautiful humans that he's ever seen. Now, he is offered over and over the food and drink, but he had an Irish grandmother who warned him to never eat or drink what the Fae may give him, or he could be trapped in their world forever. Now, this could be the case or not. We have to be skeptical in the sense of, I feel like the Fae get a really bad rep sometimes. Just like all entities, there can be good and there can be bad. And as we know that Fae would technically be non-human, that also plays into a lot of previous videos where we've talked about just because it's non-human doesn't make it bad. Now, for anyone out there who still believes Appalachia Fae, I still think that they're in Ireland and Scottish folklore, let's break down an even more reason that Fae could also be in Appalachia. Now, in order to go with this theory, we have to go back to some old geography classes, which is Pangea, or however you want to pronounce it. You go for it. And that is when all the continents were actually combined before they broke apart to where they are now. Now, with that being said, a part of the Appalachian Mountains were once connected to mountains in the Scottish Highlands. So if you are in the belief that these are Irish or Scottish in folklore and non-existent beyond those areas, then this would actually show that those mountain ranges were connected and provide a little more evidence on if Irish or Scottish Fae decided to trickle over into Appalachia. Another important factor to mention is that of immigration. Whenever Appalachia was, being established more and more people were coming to it, there were a lot of immigrants from Ireland and Scotland. And it makes sense. On asking them why they chose Appalachia and seeing it for myself, they said it looked like home. And I was actually pretty shocked when I got off the plane in Ireland thinking, I look like I'm back in Eastern Kentucky in a lot of areas. And so we have a lot of their folklore and a lot of tales and a lot of legends and music and so many things that they amazingly brought to the mountain people and the mountain areas. Fae are what we would call elemental or nature spirits, and they are believed to be some of the first spirits that ever existed on the earth. And as I said, there is not so much of a reason to always be scared of interacting with the Fae. Just like anything else, and when I tell you about paranormal investigation, you need to educate yourself. And if you do that, and you go through the techniques such as grounding or shielding or things in that way that we do before paranormal investigations, then you are providing yourself an extra layer of protection whenever you decide to work with any spirits or entities. And the Fae can completely be worked with. And the idea is that the Fae actually are the ones who make the earth work, as they are very nature-based, meaning that when it comes to, it could be grass growing, it could be rock formation, it could be think of Wizard of Oz. The wizard that's behind the big curtain making everything work, that kind of situation. Now, there is even a belief that everything contains a Fae, even down to crystals. So the idea is that the rock Fae is within this crystal. And if anyone ever gives you a crystal, then that means that the rock Fae was meant to work with you and that it wanted to come to you. I'm always going to caution you when I'm giving you information on how to interact with certain spirits or the spirit world. And with that being said, education is so important. I know from experience, and I don't want you to have to learn the hard way. So I'm going to show you a couple of books here to get you started. The first being Enchantment of the Fairy Realm by Ted Andrews. If you want to learn more in detail about all the different elemental and nature spirits out there and how to work with them, even more so based on your astrological sign and a lot of detail, this is the book that you would want to do. And I feel that Ted Andrews really leads you in a very safe and magical way to work with the Fae. Next would be Walking in Light by Sandra Ingerman. Now, this is a shamanic book and how to do shamanic journey, which is absolutely one of the most amazing ways, in my opinion, that I do quite often to work with any type of spirit or entities, and to also travel to where you could work with the Fae and to get to know the Fae that are maybe even on your own property or in your home or who you have with you. And this is a really great way to learn not only about how to work with the hidden folk, but to also learn any other way that you would want to shamanic journey and to get a basic start in shamanic journey. When I tell you that Appalachia is magical, I often mean it in a very literal way. And adding in the Fae is just another added layer in what makes Appalachia magical. So, do your research if you want to try this. And next time you're outside, talk to the Fae. See if they respond. Stay curious, my souls.